what do you think of the current state of super speedway racing here across the board in all three series? Do you find it as enjoyable as you used to maybe 10 or 15 years ago, or does it feel like now that we can't get a finishing regulation, we're seeing more of these accidents here? I told a friend the other night that it's gone from will we get the big one to when will we get the big one to how many big ones will we get? It just feels like it's kind of spiraled out of control here. What's your take on that?
It's such a divisive topic, Ben, but yeah, I do feel like with overtime existing, that drivers feel like they have more liberty to be aggressive, and because they know that there's a possibility of a second chance. Don't you think so? I mean,
Yeah.
if you knew it was only one and done, we're finishing under yellow, it's over with. It's going to go the scheduled distance, and that's it. Then you're gonna mind your p's and q's. You're not gonna take risky moves, but you're gonna do within the bounds of I'm going to finish across the line. I have to make it to the line. I also want to win. There's not going to be a redo on this. There's not going to be some extra laps. And I'm not an expert, but I think that might be the reason why we had so many green flag finishes back in the day, because there was no you weren't going to get any more. They knew that was it, and so call that what you want. But I think when you didn't give them the possibility of more laps to come where they can try again, they were a little more behaved.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think that, when drivers, again, I think we've seen this kind of with the safety aspect as well. Maybe not the last couple of years with the next gen concerns, but I think, you started to see this at the turn of the decade, probably the mid to late 2010s here. And maybe stage racing has played a part in that, playoff points and the importance of those. I don't know. But I think that when you have drivers who, recognize that if something happens here, we will at least get a do-over, like you mentioned, and now we have unlimited attempts everywhere. We went from you're only going to get one attempt to you're going to get up to 3 attempts to you have to get to the overtime line, but otherwise you can get unlimited attempts. I'll bring the overtime line back up in a second because somebody made a proposal that was interesting to me this weekend as well. But, now it's you got to complete a full lap, and if you don't, we can try this. We can be here all night if you want. And again, I feel like that we saw at the Daytona 500 this year. I think a lot of people felt like that was a buzzkill. When drivers know that we can re-rack them and give everybody a second chance or a third chance or a fifth chance, as we saw at Nashville, which isn't a super speedway, but it's a mentality that's present all throughout the series, all throughout the year now. I think that's maybe one of the unintended consequences of having unlimited overtimes.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
And
I haven't. I'll be honest, I haven't really enjoyed it that much. Whenever, I really am hoping that we get to a green flag finish, and when it's not, it's like, oh, here we go again. And I'm right there with those that you've been talking to. It's how many of them are we going to have this time? How many is it going to take? And I go back to the Cup Series just for a moment. Man, we had one overtime there, but man, the amount of carnage was again a problem with me. I know we're always going to have it, but just from Michael McDowell to Josh Berry on his lid and crashing into the safer barrier. I mean, something's got to be done about that bottom of the race car. I know that's a different topic, but yeah, just it's chaos.
Yeah, there's no doubt there. But again, I'm just drawing it back to the overtime line. One of the things, and again, forgive me, whoever tweeted this, I didn't bookmark a tweet. I only saw it in passing, but somebody said the overtime line essentially was the right idea on the wrong lap. And what this user meant by that was if we get a caution like what happened with Allmendinger on the last lap, maybe of course, you have to throw a caution immediately when the drivers coming back up into traffic or when we have a car, upside down like we have with Kyle Sieg in last week's Xfinity race in Michigan. But maybe there's a line on the backstretch that they can race to, and then they can get slowed down and, have enough time to get woed up before they come across to end the race, and then everybody slowed down under caution and can safely maneuver around whatever incident happened there. It's an interesting idea. I feel like it's probably better in theory or on paper than it would actually be executed, but it does kind of feel like, and I don't blame fans for feeling that way. Fewer and fewer of these races are ending at their scheduled distance. I mean, ending at their scheduled distance under green is practically unheard of for a super speedway race these days. It's incredible.
That's just data right there. That's not someone just generalizing. That's actual data. We don't get scheduled finish distances like we used to.
Yeah. Yep. And I think there's fans have every right to be upset about that. Once again, I understand the pro overtime argument. Believe me, it is certainly a buzzkill when races end under caution. I don't think they would end under caution as much as they do these days, or as much as we go into overtime these days, if we had never introduced the system in the first place. Because again, there's an entire generation of drivers now. I mean, everybody talked about Harrison Burton being the first Cup winner born in the 2000s. I mean, you could have had Parker Retzlaff. He was born in 2003. And I mean, he had a shot to win that race there at the end. And overtime was introduced in 2004. So in Parker Retzlaff's entire lifetime, when I say in his entire lifetime, I guess he was 1 year old when NASCAR Overtime was introduced across each of the top 3 series. So his basically his entire lifetime, he hasn't known a world different here. So you've got an entire generation of drivers now that are coming up that literally do not know anything different. And I think that in a lot of ways, you can talk about drivers being young and immature all you want, but I think it's kind of ingrained in you at that point that this is how we race now, and this is how it's always been for me, at least. So what's wrong with that?